Well, right now, serious new concerns about attacks on America launched from Syria. The LA Times reporting that at least 50 Americans have joined a mix of extremist groups fighting to overthrow President Assad in Syria. This as the directors of national intelligence and the CIA tell Congress that these groups also pose a significant threat right here at home.
Looking back over my more than half a century in intelligence, I've not experienced a time when we have been beset by more crises and threats around the globe.
Do you believe that that ungoverned space presents a real threat to the United States of America via al-Qaeda operations or the West in general?
Do.
I'm sorry.
I do.
Ambassador John Bolton is a Fox News contributor and former U.S. ambassador to the UN. He's also a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. So some stark, bleak assessment of what's going on in Syria and what it might mean to us on American soil, Ambassador. I guess the question is, what are we doing about it?
Well, I think that the threat is very real. This number of 50 Americans working with terrorists may be a smaller number. It may grow over time. And it raises, I think, a very important point here. In the midst of this contentious debate we've had about NSA intercepts over the past year since Edward Snowden released this highly sensitive information. This, to me, is the perfect case of what the NSA programs that have been so controversial are doing. So you have 50 American citizens, unquestioned they're American citizens, working with al-Qaeda in Syria. To me, that makes them terrorists. Now, don't we want to know who those terrorists are talking to in the United States? You better believe it. For preventing future terrorist attacks, this is the paradigm case of what the NSA's metadata program and the other things we've been discussing are set up to find. I sure want to know who they're talking to. Are they talking to the same people? What other information are we going to find out about this to keep us safe in the future?
And so you're making the case that these NSA programs are ideal to make sure that the surveillance is happening on these individuals so we can track them in case they come back to the United States or they're colluding in some way with someone here at home.
Exactly. Now, before the terrorist attacks take place. So, for example, if you have one or more of these 50 individuals continuously calling the same number, I'd like to know who that number is. I'd like to know what that number is calling, what other numbers they're calling. Some cases under the NSA program, you need a warrant to go further to get wiretaps of the individual involved. But this is what the metadata program is all about. We're not going to go into Syria and get their cell phones and put taps on them there. But if we can find out, if we can find numbers coming out of Syria, coming back into the United States, this is part of the effort that we should be undertaking to find out the potential for future attacks in this country. I mean, I can't think of a better category of people whose calls I'd like to know more about than these 50 Americans fighting with al-Qaeda in Syria.
In the meantime, the situation inside Syria is creating this environment that our nation's top intelligence officers are saying provides potentially a launching pad for organizations or for attacks on American soil. Is there anything more we should be doing on the ground there in Syria at this time, now nearly 3 years in, to change that?
Well, I think we should be trying to do more on the ground in Syria to find out about these people, but I'm not sure what the United States is capable of doing in what is now a three-way civil war against the Assad regime, against the al-Qaeda terrorists and others, and against the other opposition forces, many of which are Muslim Brotherhood. And let's be clear, it's not confined to Syria. Many of the al-Qaeda terrorists are also fighting, or certainly working closely with, al-Qaeda in Iraq, which is opposing the al-Maliki regime. And it's part, I'm afraid, of the general descent into chaos of the Middle East as a whole, a descent that certainly we didn't start and we can't stop, but which you can certainly say a declining American influence there is allowing conditions to grow much worse.
The question, of course, is it too far gone, which is a question we can't answer today because we're going to have to run. Ambassador, it's always great to have you. Look forward to tackling that with you, though, in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, John.